And welcome to another episode of Goats and Rings. As usual, I am your host, Walt Stringer, Senior Draft Scout from the East West Football Network. And tonight I'm joined by Parker Hall, NFL Draft Scout and Draft Writer, also right along with me with the East West Football Network. And today, before we jump into our topics, we're going to take a look at some breaking news that actually happened earlier today. Unless you've been under the rock for the last 10 hours, you should already know that the New England Patriots have cut ties with former MVP and Super Bowl quarterback Cam Newton. Parker, when you first heard this news, what did you think?
I wasn't that shocked, to be honest with you. I mean, I watched two of the Patriots preseason games, and Mac Jones played pretty well. And obviously, coming off his year at Alabama last year, he showed lots of talent. And then when you factor in Cam Newton and just the COVID scares he had last year and now the COVID scares he had in training camp, I think that probably might have had something to do with it as well. But I mean, Cam just hasn't been the same old MVP Cam that he has been since the Super Bowl, really, right? So, I mean, I'm sure he'll get picked up. I know they're talking a lot about the Cowboys are doing their due diligence to look at him here today, and if I think he still has talent to be a starter in the league, but it has to be in the right system for sure.
Yeah, I partly agree. I think Cam still has the physical tools and the physical skill set, even though I think that skill set is somewhat corroding. And I agree. I think the Carolina Panthers took a lot of years off his life. I think the Denver Broncos beat a couple after years off of his life in that Super Bowl. And then the very next season, in the very first game of the season, he did it to him again. And I agree. Look, Cam, the situation with the COVID scare, that issue, and him not getting vaccinated, I think some of those things, whether they're right or wrong, a couple of those things probably did play a part in Belichick or the organization saying, you know what, it's really not worth it. We can just go ahead and part ways. We can take this younger guy. Because at the end of the day, I think in this day and age in the NFL, you can't consistently win if you can't get the ball downfield. And you can't do it consistently. You have to consistently be able to move the ball through the air, and consistently throwing the football has never been Cam's forte. You know, Cam may be good for a couple weeks, then he'll fly off the rails for a couple games. So I think the Patriots did what they knew they had to do, considering what you did to get Mac Jones and all the great things we've heard about Mac Jones in training camp and how well he's been working with the ones and how he's picked up the offense very quickly. So for me to write it on the wall has been there for a minute. I think I'm not sure if Cam was in denial or anyone else was in denial, but I think we saw this coming for a minute now.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the right scheme for Cam to be in my opinion, like that kind of power run that the Patriots like to run. But yeah, like you said, he doesn't really, I mean, he has the arm. Like, I think he has the strength to do it. It's just injuries and stuff has plagued his arm and his throwing ability and stuff like that, right? So, I mean, he's definitely not the same cat that he used to be. And Mac Jones, just young, youthful, full of energy, got that same kind of arm, can make the plays down the field, throws guys open. Hopefully, I mean, you're forced into it now. There's no turning back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week.
Right. Off the top of your head, where do you think would be the best fit for Cam?
As a backup or a starter?
Well, I mean, this season he would have to be a backup. He's not going anywhere starting now, unless you want to get him caught up the first 5-6 weeks of the season and then try to get him in there if you think your team is good enough to win.
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, maybe Washington, maybe Pittsburgh. Just as a backup, you learn from Big Ben a bit. Mike Tomlin likes to be in that power run kind of system as well. And with Najee Harris, I mean, that's clearly what they're going to do. So, I mean, that would be a good system for him to be in. If you're going with Washington, I mean, you can fight for your job back from Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know how people like to bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick and have him as their starter and then turn away from him in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? So, though again, like that's kind of Ron Rivera has kind of a run first system there as well, and he's got I think it's Curtis Samuel, right? That's there now.
Yeah,
Washington, familiar target from Carolina. So I mean, could be a good option there. And then he's got a powerful defense behind him on both those teams, right? So you don't have to rely on being that offensive MVP again, right? You just rely on your defense to win you games, and you just be a good game manager, safe with the ball, rely on your running game.
Yeah, I hope Cam lands on his feet. We've seen a lot of these big, tough, mobile quarterbacks have these type of inevitable ends, similar to what Steve McNair had, where it seems like people just constantly want to just kick you out of the building.
Yeah. Same thing with Donovan McNabb too, right? It's just at the end of his career, once he left Philadelphia, he bounced around, and it was just nobody gave him a real shot, whether or not he had the talent still.
Yeah. So, but moving on, guess what this weekend is, Parker?
Man, college football's back. I don't even have to guess. You already know it's marked on my calendar.
Exactly. So we got, first things first, at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. Of course, we got number 14 Miami, Florida, playing the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, people may not know this. This is the first meeting between these two teams since 1993, which was, I believe, for the national championship. I believe it was. Yeah, 1990 was for the national championship. Bama actually owns the all-time matchup, 14-3, and they're favored in this game by 17.5 points. So, your initial thoughts on this game?
My initial thoughts, I mean, a lot of turnover from both teams is going into last year's draft, or this draft that just happened, 2021 draft. So there's going to be a lot of new talent that's going to be on the national spotlight for the first, well, not the first time, obviously, but like kind of headlining and taking the lead at their respective positions. And it's time to show out and put your money where your mouth is, I guess.
Yeah, I'm looking at Bama. Bama lost a lot of juice on offense. They still got juice on offense. They got some guys, teams like that, the cupboard never really goes bare at the skill positions. They just consistently reload. You got a guy like John Mechie, who's probably going to be a first-round pick in April. I look at the defense. Bama hasn't had a defense that led them to a national title in a few years now. And I think this may be the year, because this is a senior-laced defense.
Yeah.
And, they're starting Bryce Young. This is the first full season that we're going to really get of him also. But, there's not a lot of big names on the defense. You got a guy like Christian Harris, the linebacker, who's a potential top 15 pick. But like I said, it's Young's first full season under center, and I'm thinking this may be a year that the defense may have to really carry that team. But he's got some people on offense. He's got probably the best tackle in America in Evan Neal, who's going to be a top 5 pick in next April's draft. So
I'm with you. Like I'm excited to see about Bryce Young, right? I mean, highly touted coming out of high school. I'm pretty sure he's from California, right? And has some legs, can throw the ball. He's obviously being a bit shorter. I think he's around 6 feet, if that. Going to get that Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson kind of treatment when he's going into his draft looks. But the talent's there for sure. You brought up John Mechie, who obviously. The Canadian I'm a huge fan of. And yeah, I mean, he looks good. I think he had just under 1,000 yards last year as the number 2 guy to Devonta Smith, and filling in for Jalen Waddle, right? So it's going to be filling in there. But I mean, the run game, I don't know. Usually it's weird because Alabama's always got that backup, right? Where it's at the running back position, where when Mark Ingram went down, Trent Richardson was the next man up. When Trent Richardson went down, I can't even remember the order of guys at this point, but every year it seems like the starting running back would get injured and they would be the next man up, which I haven't heard too much about Najee Harris's backup last year, who's supposed to be starting this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how their offense changes, and just having Bryce Young as more of a running threat than I would say Jalen probably was, and more than what Tua was. So I'm excited to see that. And like you said, on the defensive side of the ball, linebackers, Christian Harris is a beast. They got the big transfer from Tennessee, Henry To'oTo'o, I believe that's his name. I mean, he's been highly touted. Josh Jobe, if off the top of my head, is a great cornerback. And then, as much as we hate him as an NFL coach, Bill O'Brien, isn't that his name from Texas? That was the Texans head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, new defensive coordinator. So, I mean, he's got lots of experience, whether or not he's a good coach or not. Maybe he's got to for the college level.
I've got experience.
Yeah.
I'm not good, though.
Exactly.
Let me.
Who knows? Maybe he's better for the college level, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously Nick Saban's the best there ever has been. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm leaning towards Bama in this game. I think Miami has the advantage with De'Aaron King. He's got the experience advantage, but who knows what Bryce Young could turn out to be. Bryce could go out there and throw 6 touchdowns in his first game, or Bama could go out there and rush for 400 yards. You never really quite know what you're going to get from Bama. So I'm kind of like, I just don't think Miami really has the manpower this year. And I'm kind of surprised with that 14th, that ranking at 14th right now. They do return all ACC safety Bubba Bolden. But outside of that, there's not really a lot of firepower on this team offensively or defensively for them to really stop Alabama, I think. Not to mention, come on, this game is what is it? Is it in where is this game at? It's pretty much a home game for Bama anyway. I know it's not in Bama. Yeah.
No, I didn't know what stadium they were playing at. But I agree with you. Like De'Aaron King, obviously, we all know he's one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, probably top 10, I would give him. Cameron Harris had a great year as his running back last year. So those are the two main weapons. But you look past that and no receivers really are there. They got Charleston Rambo, who transferred from Oklahoma, who they are kind of saying is going to be the number one guy. But he only had 1 year. I think it was his sophomore season. He put up 700 yards, and that was the most. And then he had a real down year last year. I don't know if he played every game last year or what it was because of COVID, but that's what they're kind of touting is he's going to be a breakout player this year. So we'll have to see there. But yeah, on defense, you're totally right. Bubba Bolden's there, but who else? Nobody jumps off the page for me like Jalen Phillips last year, Quincy Roche. The year before, Gregory.
Yeah.
Like none of those guys, they don't have the name power. And Miami's headed in the right direction, right? They're trending towards like they used to be in the early 2000s and stuff like that. And when they had guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and McGahee, Andre Johnson, right? So it's like, I think college football is in a better place when Miami is one of the top teams, but it's going
to be hard for Miami to get back to that area. I think it's going to be hard for them to get back to that area, similar to how it's been very difficult for Texas to do it.
For sure.
Because if you look at the state of Florida, the best players in Florida all don't want to go play for the U anymore. They all don't want to go to play for Florida State. Guys are going to UCF. Guys are going to South Florida. So guys are going to Bama.
Yeah.
Guys are coming up north to Ohio State. They're going to Michigan. So it's going to be hard for Miami to really get those same athletes that they used to get.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and that even Florida's starting to turn around their program from what it was the last handful of years, decade, I guess. I totally agree. I mean, you got to get your own pipeline in your city, especially. Miami's such a rich football city at the high school ranks. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure like a great example of that isn't Lamar Jackson from Miami. He goes to Louisville, right? And you miss out on him. But yeah, guys going to Clemson. Clemson, we'll talk about them in a bit. But you got to secure your own guys for sure.
Exactly. So I'm taking it that you're leaning towards Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely leaning towards Alabama. I mean, it's hard to bet against them every year, as much as we hate to do it. It's the safe pick for sure.
Cool. So let's jump into Clemson.
For sure.
So we're looking at 6 straight ACC titles, 6 straight trips to the playoff, 2 national titles within that span. They had a lot of turnover over this past offseason. They lost probably the greatest quarterback, arguably the greatest quarterback in school history in Trevor Lawrence, most productive running back in school history in Travis Etienne. But as usual, schools like that, they continue to reload. They've got DJ under center, who I feel is going to be the number one overall pick in another year or so.
Mhm.
They got Justin Ross back. I'm glad. Hopefully, he's all together. His health is always, the number one thing to be concerned with. Um, they reload. Teams like that reload, and Dabo has been talking a lot about the revamped offense. They're not going to really run as much as they were able to do with Trevor Lawrence, because that's not really DJ's his main forte, although he can take off and move. But is this the year you think Clemson maybe takes a step back?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, just looking on the talent on the defensive side of the ball and the offense, like they've had big names for so many years now, whether it was the defensive line where they had the 4 go in the first 2 rounds or whatever 2 years ago. You got guys like, Justin Ross is great, but like T. Higgins is gone. Trevor Lawrence, right, probably made a lot of those guys what they were.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne, obviously an incredible running back that did it both on the ground and in the pass game. So, but you're right. I like DJ. I think obviously he came out of high school with high praise too. But I think he was heavily criticized when he was thrown into the fire last year when Trevor Lawrence got injured, and he looked fine. But
Yeah,
I think he did lose the 1 game, or was it 2 that he started? I don't know.
he played well in both games though. But when it comes to college football, no one cares about those stats. Is did you win?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So but yeah, again, it's Clemson, right? It's same thing as Alabama. They've got hot recruiting as of the last handful of years, and or 2 handful of years, I guess, if you want to go the last decade. And if Dabo stays around and they keep productive there, then obviously you're going to attract. They got good facilities, like you're going to attract good players.
Yeah. So, as of a few hours ago, checking from Sports Illustrated, Georgia is a 3-point underdog to Clemson. So I think that tells us right there all we need to know. I'm going to say a little bit about Clemson. Give Georgia a little bit of love. Third-ranked recruiting class in the SEC. They returned a lot of guys on that defense. And if you look at that defense from a year ago, they were number 1 against the run in the SEC. They were number 2 in scoring defense, only giving up 20 points a game. They were 6th against the pass, and they were number 2 in total defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they returned a lot of guys. They got some guys that left in the secondary. That secondary is going to be a big question, I think, for them. But that front 7 is good enough to give a lot of teams in the SEC problems. And I think if this game Saturday becomes an ugly, tough game, a 20-17 type of game, 17-14 type of game, I'm going to lean towards Georgia because I think Georgia is better than Clemson at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I'm
just leaning towards Georgia in general. I think JT Daniels is going to take another step this year, and with Kirby Smart's or like that offense, I think he'll be fine, and he doesn't have to do anything special. Like we were just saying about Cam Newton, you have him as a game manager. You rely on Zamir White to take off a lot of pressure, who's definitely can be that bell cow kind of running back, lead that offense. I think they're in a good spot. And then you look on defense, like you said, they were one of the top defensive teams in the nation last year. Adam Anderson is projected to be one of the top picks in this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have Nolan Smith, who really hasn't lived up to the hype coming out of high school, but I think he's a stud and he has potential to really establish himself this year. So lots of talent on that defensive front 7.
They got maybe the best nose in the country also in Jordan. So
yeah.
I think that Georgia team, that Georgia defense is going to come to play Saturday. It's going to come to play, and it's going to be interesting considering the fact that Clemson doesn't have a guy that can really get out and move like that.
Mm-hmm.
And DJ, this is his very first season as a full starter. He's bringing back, some young wide receivers, some young running backs. Their offensive line isn't the same. I could see a situation where Georgia really gets in there and puts one on them. Because people got to really understand, too, this is Clemson's first time opening up the season against a ranked opponent since 2014, when Georgia beat the brakes off of them. So there's something about – I put Clemson and Ohio State kind of in the same the same realm where they're really, really, really great programs. They're fast football programs. They're not like other Big Ten teams. They're not like other ACC teams. But when those teams tend to play ACC, not ACC, but SEC teams, it's a completely different brand of football. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go against Clemson in this game. I'm going to take Georgia, even though I'm not the biggest JT Daniels fan. I'm not the biggest fan of really any quarterback in this draft. To be honest, I think if you put DJ in this draft, there's a chance DJ will probably be the first quarterback taken off the board.
I'm with you, and I think everyone's kind of all over the place with quarterbacks this year in this year's draft. Like, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but like, I'm not convinced about Sam Howell, and everyone loves him. But now everyone's talking about this Richmond quarterback. I don't even know his name.
And, Malik Harris.
Yeah,
Malik Harris.
Yeah, Malik. I'm pretty sure it's Malik Harris. And then there was another one I saw today who was completely out of the blue. So yeah, I'm totally with you. Like,
well, listen, man, I saw someone's way too early big board on Instagram a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And they had Carson Strong as the 7th overall pick from Nevada.
That's Nevada. Yeah. Exactly.
No, it's all opinionated, but it was a bold take. It was definitely a bold take.
Then there's Rattler too, which I thought he played like trash last year. And
he improved as the season went on. Lincoln Riley was able to whip him into shape.
Oh, we're thinking about. I just Googled it. We're thinking about Malik Willis from Liberty.
Malik Willis, yeah,
from Liberty. But yeah, I mean, like, again, there's not a household name, and he's arguably the third quarterback this year. Matt Corral too is going up boards, is who I was thinking of, the Ole Miss quarterback. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad college football is back, and they're starting us off with two. Well, we hope that they turn out to be two great games,
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I watched UCLA and Hawaii last week, and if anything's better than that, we'll be in for a good weekend.
Absolutely. So, let's move back to the NFL. We're going to talk about one of my favorite teams growing up, even though you guys were trash when I was growing up. I love the uniforms, love the fact that you guys played in the desert. I think you guys should play outside. I think you guys surrendered one of the greatest home field advantages ever. No one wanted to go up there and play. No one wanted to go to Arizona and play back when you guys had Sun Devil Stadium and it was 94 degrees in the shade.
I'm sure, for you guys that are watching that don't know, I'm a Cardinals fan, and I mean, that stadium, from what I've seen, I've never been to it, but I'm sure it looks beautiful on the inside and out. And I mean, I'm sure the home team, it attracts players to come play for them too, because who wants to play their whole season out in that
exactly
heat? Sure. But yeah, definitely a home field advantage for sure out in the sun. And I'm surprised you said you like the jerseys, because most of the jerseys I've never really loved. So
yeah, I liked them. I liked them. It's something about teams who kept, when I was growing up, teams who kept flashy perimeter players. Like, you guys always had like some of the most stud wide receivers, going back to guys like Rob Moore and Frank Sanders, and even the corners. You guys always drafted really athletic, fast corners, and that's pretty much what I was into when I was a kid. So yeah, you guys always had the sexy positions, the glamour positions down packed. As far as winning, that was a different story.
Yeah.
But so I want to ask you a couple questions, man. What's going on with Rodney Hudson?
I don't know. And I think, everyone was excited to get him in this year, and it's just, I don't know. So hopefully,
is it a year too late?
Wow. Yeah, probably. I mean, he's pretty old, and I don't know. I guess maybe the Raiders knew something that nobody else did. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he turns it around and we get it figured out here, because he should be a big piece of that offensive line.
Yeah. So offensively, man, I'm looking at the depth chart. I like the running back situation, at least the first two. I love Chase Edmonds, honestly, when he's healthy. I like the addition of James Conner. DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, AJ Green, Andy Isabella. It seems like Kyler's got all the weapons in place And another thing I like that you guys have that I haven't heard a lot of people really comment a lot on, I like Colt McCoy. I like Colt McCoy as a backup because I feel if Kyler was to ever go down for an extended period of time, I believe Colt could step into that situation with those weapons and that running game, and he could actually keep you guys alive for some games. You guys could actually win games with Colt McCoy.
Yeah, so I mean that's super interesting. Chris Streveler, who is quarterback arguably number 3 now, but comes from the CFL, right? And even up here in the CFL, he was never really a throwing quarterback. They won their championship based on his ability to run the ball, and it worked. And then he goes down after he wins the Grey Cup up here, and then goes down to Arizona last season and gets a job, and he fits that mold of what Kyler does, right? I mean, Kyler's obviously a way better passer than he is, but if you need someone to keep that mobile threat, then you throw in Chris Streveler and he can do that. Colt McCoy obviously has been around in the league as a backup for a long time because he's a smart guy and he has those tools. He just never could really put it together, and maybe that was the Browns' fault, but there's definitely talent there. So veteran status. So he's a smart guy. I wouldn't be worried about throwing him in at all.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just a guy who I'm always looking past who the starters are because guys go down, quarterbacks go down, freak injuries happen, and you don't want to be in a situation where, as a Lions fan, I watched it for about 12 years where the Lions did not draft a quarterback, period, until they drafted Jake Rudock in the 6th round, I believe, was it 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like it was negligent. And then you compare that philosophy to the philosophy of an organization like the New England Patriots, who believe you draft a quarterback every 2 years, at least.
Yep.
So, you don't want to be in a situation where when your main guy goes down, oh, damn it, our season is over with and it's only week 1. I think if Kyler was to suffer some type of short-term injury for 4 or 5 weeks, I could throw Colt in there and I wouldn't really be worried about it. Well, not too much.
For sure. And I mean, that's Kyler finished the season. We didn't make the playoffs because we lost that last game because he had an arm issue, right? And that's obviously not the full reason why, but like it was noticeable how he was banged up a lot of last season. And I totally agree with you. I mean, you need a good backup, especially at quarterback that can come in. We even saw it in the Carson Palmer years in Arizona. I mean, when he would go down, we had put Stanton in, and I liked Drew Stanton. I thought he was a fine backup, but then Stanton went down, and we had Ryan Lindley, and that
didn't work.
Brutal quarterback.
It didn't work.
So it's you need, whether you're going to keep 2 on your roster and 1 on your practice squad, that's up to you. But you definitely need someone to be a good, quality, reliable backup in the NFL these days. Especially, you look at Dallas last year. Dak goes down, and I mean, who went in? Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush? Like, okay. We're winning you games, right?
Yeah. So, in your opinion, are you guys a little too run dependent with Kyler? Because, like, going back to last season's stats, you guys ran the ball a lot. You did. Mm-hmm. You guys were pretty productive running the ball. The 3 games that you guys didn't get over 100 yards were 3 losses, twice to the Rams and once to Seattle. What's the deal with the Rams? Because I see in both of those games, the Rams managed to hold you guys under 200 yards passing and under 100 yards rushing.
Yeah, well, I mean, Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers are good, right? They had Leonard Floyd. They had a bunch of good
They had John Johnson.
John Johnson, exactly, right? I mean, Jalen Ramsey plays the run better than any quarterback I've seen. So, I mean, there's that, right? But think about all that talent that's gone this year. Michael Brockers, I don't know if
he's here,
in Detroit, right? Yeah. So they're kind of depleted there a bit more. I don't know. We'll see this year. I 100% believe in my heart that any of those 4 teams can win an NFC West. And it really just comes down to who kind of gets lucky at this point, because they're all extremely talented.
True.
And I think the Cardinals, our biggest issue is, like you said, we just need to stay healthy, especially on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like J.J. Watt, best player in the game, arguably, when he's healthy, but he's not. How often is he healthy? Chandler Jones was out most of last year. I guess we don't even have a real cornerbacks right now other than Byron Murphy.
Hell of a player, man. I
Yeah.
like Byron.
Yeah,
Byron's
but
a player.
I think he needs to be utilized in the slot a bit more. And again, that takes away a bit of Budda Baker's talents. But who's going to play the outside, right? Malcolm Butler is thinking about retiring this week, and they put him on the retired list today during the cut downs. So you're kind of going with Marco Wilson and Robert Eltford, another guy who hasn't been healthy in the last 2 years, to come in and start. And we'll see how that goes. But yeah, there's talent there for sure. It just, can you stay healthy?
Sure.
Same with the offensive line. I mean,
how close were you guys to really wanting to take J.C. Horn? If Horn had fallen to that pick,
I think if Horn would have fallen to that pick, I think they had to go there with Patrick Peterson gone and no real other cornerback option. I think they had to go there, and then obviously once him and Patrick Surtain were gone, then it was kind of just best player available is how Steve Keim likes to do it. So go out and get Zaven Collins, who fantastic talent, and he's shown that thus far in preseason that he'll be the starting middle linebacker of the future.
Yeah, because I mean, defensively looking at you guys, I think you're set at linebacker. Like you guys got playmakers all over the field at linebacker with Marcus Golden, Devon Kennard, who was here. I think Kennard is a very, very, very underappreciated player.
Yep.
You look at guys like Jordan Hicks is another guy who's a productive player when he's healthy. Of course, Zaven Collins, Chandler Jones. You know, the secondary, as you mentioned, is still a question. Budda Baker's a hell of a player. He can only do so much.
Yeah.
Isaiah Simmons, depending on his maturation and how they decide to use him. But I think you guys have enough talent within that back seven to make up for some things. I don't really expect a lot out of J.J. Watt. Personally, I think when you see defensive tackles and defensive ends, they start trailing off towards the end of their careers. J.J. was already hurt a lot.
Yeah.
The middle part of his career. And I think people are still expecting him to be someone that he's not quite the same. Now, can he open up things for other guys? Hell yeah. Now, I do believe that's a possibility. But I think you guys are going to need a lot from that front seven, a lot of creativity, blitz package-wise, to really hide that secondary.
I think that's like one of the things I'm not worried about too. Is just the pressure we're getting from the front seven alone. I mean, Zaven Collins, he can come up the middle. Isaiah Simmons has the athletic ability to blitz. You have Marcus Golden and Chandler Jones, like you said, coming off the edges, who don't really need that much double, or like if they'll win one-on-ones. And then J.J. Watt's obviously going to command a double team for a lot of the time. And then you have Jordan Phillips, who was injured last year. And you put him on that line, and he, I think, led the league in sacks 2 years ago with either Buffalo or Miami. I can't remember where he came from. But he can rush the passer at 340 pounds, I think. So it's, getting after the quarterback, I think, is going to be a bit of a breeze for us this year.
Yeah, I look at special teams. You guys got Matt Prater. As long as Matt Prater's head is on straight, he's money. He's money in the kicking game. Andy Lee is money in the punting game, and then you guys got versatility in the return game.
Yeah.
Isabella, Rondell Moore, Christian Kirk.
Yep. No, for sure. And I mean, yeah, like you were saying, I like Chase Edmonds too. He can return. Him and James Conner got a nice 1-2 punch. They're saying Eno Benjamin's starting to come along, and they just signed Ito Smith from the Falcons, or who was formerly on the Falcons. So I think that will be a nice backfield that we have. Obviously, the wide receiver group, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green's, they're saying is looking like his Pro Bowl self. Christian Kirk in the slot. Rondell Moore, they've said, has been fantastic this preseason. And from what I've seen, he's done a really good job in games. And then Andy Isabella, who they're giving another shot, and everyone thought he would be gone. But if he can make something happen as a returner and a backup receiver, that's just more depth, right? The only issue is that we're losing a bunch of production from Dan Arnold going to Carolina. We have Max Williams, who everyone, right? Yeah. He was hyped up coming in, and they said, they'll make him what he was supposed to be, being, I think, a first or second round draft pick in Baltimore. And then Dan Arnold kind of stole the show. So we got to wait and see what the tight end position will be. But that's the only question mark I really have on offense right now, other than maybe one or two of the offensive line positions. So,
all right, so throw it out. How many wins you get this year?
Oh God, I hate predicting things like that, but
barring injuries,
I want to say 10 or 11, and I think we make the playoffs. We kind of split most of the games with the other two divisions, but I think, like I said last year at the beginning of the season, I think a lot of the two NFC West teams can make the 2 wild card spots for sure.
Yeah, I think you guys can get. I think you can get to 10 wins, 10, 11 wins. I think this year, considering what a team like the Rams, who seem to be, you guys' enemy right now, they beat you twice last season, so you're moving forward this season. Okay, the Rams got to the playoffs last year. Seattle got there. These are the teams that we have to consistently be able to beat. Not to mention, of course, the 49ers as well. Mm-hmm. I think you guys are more equipped this season to at least be able to handle the Rams offensively, because with Chandler Jones being back, and then, like I said, it's a give and take, trying to figure out exactly how you guys are going to run that 3-4 defense, as far as the nose tackle and what's going on there. I think nose tackle is still a position you guys could upgrade at. But, you've got enough around those guys to really be able to cause damage.
Yep, for sure. But like the Rams, no Cam Akers this year. They traded for forget who they traded for, but they traded for
Tony Michel.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They traded for him 2 weeks ago, so he's kind of that same kind of Cam Akers, more of a power back than finesse. But yeah, receivers, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, good. They have Deshaun Jackson still. Tutu Atwell's there. So they'll have talent, and Matt Stafford can throw the ball deep. So, but their offensive line isn't that great either. Pretty old and not too much experience, or I don't know. So yeah, and then defense again. They lost a bunch of pieces on defense. So theoretically, LA could finish last. Seattle too, right? Seattle.
Well, if we want to be honest, you guys may have the best roster from top to bottom in that division.
Yeah.
Seattle hasn't really done enough around Russell. I think the 49ers are what they are. They're an excellently coached football team. They've got great GM upstairs. Yep. And, as long as they're healthy, we expect the 49ers to be there. We don't really know what their quarterback situation is going to be, but as long as the 49ers are there, I think the 49ers are pretty much the class of that division. And it all comes down to what Arizona does. Does Kyler take that next step? And also, does Cliff take that next step as a head coach?
Yeah, well, it's from everything I read, it sounds like Cliff's pretty well on the hot seat this year. And if he doesn't make the playoffs, I think he might be gone at the end of the year, which, it is what it is, right? It's not like they haven't given him the talent to work with. They've implemented his system, and it's sort of worked. Looked really good when it's really good, but when it's bad, it looks terrible. So, who knows what's going to happen there? But yeah, I agree, right? San Francisco, they get their quarterback situation figured out, whether it's Jimmy G or if it's Trey Lance, and Trey Sermon running the ball, Morstead running the ball, right? Receivers, Brandon Ayuk should step up. Deebo Samuel is still there. And then on defense, who they got, right? They're good. But I honestly think Arizona could finish first. I think Arizona could finish last, right? That division is just a real throw up. It's easily the best division in football.
Yeah, exactly. So from one flock of birds to another flock of birds, we're going to go over to the NFC East and talk about one of the most puzzling franchises in football over the past year and a half. Philadelphia Eagles, as we know, they traded former franchise quarterback Carson Wentz to the Colts for a couple picks. Jalen Hurts, the pressure's all on Jalen now. How do you feel about Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia? They brought in a brand new head coach. They drafted Devonta Smith. They gave him a weapon, a guy he played with for a second in Alabama. They got Miles Sanders going on there. What do you really think about the Philadelphia Eagles as a whole, as an organization?
Old, I guess, would be the one word to describe them. Definitely talent there. Jalen Hurts is a winner, and maybe he doesn't know how to lose yet, and he's got to go through a year of that. But I mean, Miles Sanders can run the ball, right? I like him. Smith obviously drafted him, his partner in Alabama. It really, again, that NFC East could go any direction either, right? Jalen Hurts could come out flying and dominate, right? But it really depends on a whole bunch of things. Their offensive line's good, a lot of talent there, but again, a bit old with Lane Johnson and
True.
I think Jason Kelsey's still their starting center. Their guard is Brooks, I think, still. So, just a lot of – and then on the defensive side of the ball, Fletcher Cox is getting up there. Brandon Graham's up there. Darius Slay is obviously
up there.
A good player, but up there. Alex Singleton's their starting middle linebacker, and as much as I'll give the CFL guy praise here, he's getting up there. So I think age is a big question for Philadelphia this year, but who knows? And then, is it going to be Jalen Hurts is the question too now, obviously with the trade last week for Gardner Minshew. Kind of blindsided everyone because we thought, Joe Flacco's their backup, right? And Jalen Hurts, this is his job to lose. Joe Flacco's going to be the mentor, and that's how they're going to stick it out. But now Gardner Minshew had some success in Jacksonville, whether you like him or not. That's a hot debate, but obviously there's talent there. We've seen it in Washington State and in Jacksonville last year. So
I don't know about how much we saw last year.
They
won that first game against Houston and then lost 15 straight.
Yeah, but it's Jacksonville. I think Gardner Minshew has some talent, but who knows?
Yeah, man, it's rough, man. These guys are like the NFL equivalent to like the San Antonio Spurs, man. Why did you allow this roster to get so old so quick? And they fell victim to, I think, a couple of years ago to overpaying guys simply because they won with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a horrible habit that bad organizations tend to practice. I'm going to pay people because I won with them, not really understanding the fact that this guy is maybe 2 years away from being an average player. Brandon Brooks is a great guard. I'm not sure if I would have gave Brooks that much money that they gave him, but still, he was a great guard. But if you look at the rest of that roster, especially on offense, compare this receiving core to the Detroit Lions receiving core. Now, if you look, Greg Ward, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Jalen Reagor, who was a first-round pick last year who can't stay healthy. He wasn't able to stay healthy at TCU. He wasn't able to stay healthy his first year. He's up in the air. You got Quez Watkins, who gave them some plays last year, and Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
And then, you got Dallas Goedert, who hasn't really turned out to be what they thought he would turn out to be. Zach Ertz is pretty much, I'm sure, on his way out eventually via trade. So, Kenneth Gainwell, though.
Kenneth Gainwell,
though.
Good deep pull on that roster that not a lot of people, unless you watch deep college football, about. But he's talented for sure.
Productive player. I think they're gonna. It's sort of a fill it out this year season for Jalen. I think Jalen, he stuck it out. He's a leader. I think Jalen deserves this first season. To get his job. He earned his job. I don't think. Evidently, if you decided to bring Minshew in, you couldn't have been that happy with Flacco at all.
Which is fair. We saw in the last few years in Baltimore with Flacco, right? He didn't have the talent. So,
so it could be an ugly season offensively for Philly. Could not, depending on what they decide to do with the running game. But they want to pretty much highlight the running game offensively, which I don't think they have a choice but to. You can do some power run with Hurts, with Hurts as well too. So, but even defensively, Avonte Maddox, Josiah Scott, former Michigan State Spartan. They got Steven Nelson from the Steelers. I think he was a pretty solid pickup.
Yeah.
The linebacking core, Mike, they got Eric Wilson playing the Mike. Things look pretty rough, man.
Yeah.
Javon Hargrave, solid defensive tackle. They overpaid for him from Pittsburgh, and they put him in a situation where they expect him to be somebody that he can't be.
I was just gonna say Derek Barnett too. He just hasn't panned out, right? So it's their defense is the biggest question mark. But luckily they play in a terrible division in the NFC East, and maybe they can escape with a couple of wins that they shouldn't.
They have no business winning that division this year.
No, but we've seen that in the East, right? It's just like, obviously, I think Washington's my favorite in the NFC East, but I mean, Dallas is there. Yeah, it could go any way. We've seen with injuries happen in that division that, and who knows if Ryan Fitzmagic can bring that magic back.
I don't see it happening. Well, Ryan has a chance with Washington. I think so. No one seems to believe that but me and you. But I think if you compare to what he's had in the past, this is the best complete football team he's had.
Yeah.
When you go back to the Jets, the Bills, he was there with bad Bills football. Yeah. And the Dolphins, he was there with bad Dolphin football and an average Dolphin football. He wasn't there really. Well, he was there last year when the team was pretty much, I think, ascending. And then they handed the team over to Tua. But from top to bottom, wide receiver core, running back, the offensive line, they upgraded some spots on the offensive line. That defensive front seven is a nightmare for everybody.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they got the best coach in the division. They may have the best coaching staff in that division, if you want to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, I give that. They got Ron Rivera, head coach. I don't know who their defensive coordinator is, but Norv Turner's son, who I forget his first name, is the offensive coordinator.
Isn't it Del Rio?
Del Rio at defensive coordinator? Might be.
I thought so.
Yeah, but I mean, that front seven gives me nightmares, and I don't even have to play on the same field as them, right? Like Chase Young, Jonathan Allen,
Montez Sweat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's they've come a long way, that Washington organization, and it's going to be exciting.
So how many games you giving Philly?
I mean, if they're doing really good and Hurts takes the reins and does what he needs to do, maybe 9, 10. But if they're playing good, I think they have the potential to do that. But if they're bad, like 2, 3, right? But so like I'd say medium ground, maybe 4, 5, 6 games in that range. I think that would be the safe bet.
Yeah, I'll give them between 5 and 6. Yeah, 5 and 6. Sounds pretty good. So we're gonna get ready to close this out. I'm gonna give you the floor. What's on your mind? Anything you want to talk about?
CFL football, always on my mind.
CFL football.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can watch it on ESPN Plus down there. I'll do the shameless plug for the whole league. It's great football. A lot of these guys that have been cut today will probably end up there a bit. Bit different rules, but it's exciting if you love lots of offense and lots of special teams. It's a fun league to watch.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
definitely.
So for all you Americans, if you guys got ESPN Plus, go ahead and watch some games this weekend.
Definitely. Well, all right. As usual, of course, it's always great talking to you, Parker. I talk to you every single day, matter of fact. So.
Yeah. It's been a minute since we've been on a show, though. I don't think I've been on an East-West show since probably the draft, actually.
Right.
I think the last one was the draft with Coach Hugh Jackson, so that was fun.
Yep. So don't worry, I'm going to have you back on during the season a couple of times if you're not too swamped over there with those BC Lions.
For sure. Yeah. No, I'm always up for it. Thank you for having me.
But all right, we're going to go ahead and close it out. I will see everyone next week. Thank you for tuning in. I'm out.